everyone. Welcome to this month's Lunch with the Nerds. We're talking data storytelling today. I am Allison Gonzalez. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer here at Pragmatic Works. I'm also joined with one of my fellow trainers, Angelica. She is going to be helping me out in the chat today, so you can see who's going to be responding to all of your questions. Also, our marketing team is going to be in there too. So look forward to having an amazing session with all of you with so many people in there. I always love seeing where everyone is at. It's always so fun for that. So make sure if you've got questions as we go through today, hopefully keep them on topic, but put those in the chat and Angelica can help you out over there. She'll even push them over to me if we have time to get into them. All right. So let's get started, everyone. So again, my name is Allison Gonzalez. I'm a Microsoft trainer here at Pragmatic Works. I have over a decade of experience training and doing managing for tech companies. I've got a 4-year-old kiddo at home, 4.5, as she loves to remind people every time she is asked. And also, I have a fine art degree. It's kind of weird in the data world, but I actually went to school for a degree in painting and illustration. What you do with it, I don't know, but gave me a ton of experience in the art world. When I graduated, though, I learned a few different coding languages to build my own portfolio site. I then built a bunch of sites for other people before becoming a professional web designer at a company for a few years. I then moved into management of the design team and got to review sites every day for my team, provide feedback, and also gather tons of inspiration for them, stay on top of trends. Then I moved into management for the copywriting team, got to do the same thing for them, and then moved into training. So this is why this is one of my favorite classes to teach. It's really a compilation of all the topics I love: design, good narration, and of course, some good data. So I'm also over on LinkedIn, and there's my email address. So if you have any questions later on about other courses we offer or anything else, don't hesitate to reach out over there. All right. So this is what we are going to cover. We only have an hour and a half today, and I could talk about this literally all day, and I have, but we're keeping it short. We're keeping it to an hour and a half, so a nice lunchtime session for you all. So we're going to be talking really about the theory and practice of storytelling. We're starting it off kind of just going into the basics to see how your brain works, how and why storytelling is important with your data. So we're going to talk about the need for it. What is it? We're going to go over the data storytelling life cycle. We're then going to go into the tools for data storytelling that are built into Power BI and how you can really adjust your Power BI reports to fit this narration that we're going to discuss. And finally, we're going to build an example together. Now, I have a lot of it pre-built for you. The class files are linked in the chat for you. So if you want to follow along with me on that build, you are more than welcome to. Also, since it's live on YouTube, if you miss anything, just go back and you can rewatch it, replay it as much as you want. Also, this whole live event will also be saved as a video on our channel. And it's also going to be on our on-demand learning platform that's free for life content. So if you're looking for this later, you're joining, but you don't know if you can stay for the whole time, on our YouTube channel over here on that live section, you can go right over here and you can rewatch this session as well as all of our other live sessions we have. We do one every month, either an hour and a half or a full 3 hours. So tons and tons of content over there. Plus, just on that video tab, all of our regular 10, 20-minute videos are there if you've got little chunks of time to digest that. All right. Let's get into it, everyone. So first off, we're going to talk about why is storytelling important. So if you are a big reader or if you're a book lover like me, even a movie lover, you know that when you consume a good story that has a solid plot throughout, it causes you to feel a certain way. And that is purposeful on the part of the writer and the director because they have crafted this process. They've crafted this so that way they want you to come to this conclusion that they've predetermined, whether you love the characters or you're meant to hate something or whatever it is, they specifically drawn you there that whole time. And that is what we need to do with our storytelling and our narration for our reports. Now, how does this really apply for data storytelling? Well, companies are storing more and more data than ever before. And we need to figure out how can we utilize that and set ourselves apart. We set ourselves apart by telling a story with our data. Storytelling allows us to clarify the message that we're telling about our company or about our team in the organization. So, a reason one why storytelling is important is that stories have always been these very effective tools to transmit human experience. Those that have data analysis are just relatively recent versions of them. But storytelling really is one of the oldest forms of both teaching and entertainment. It's the way history was traditionally recorded. It's how values were passed down. It's how families, neighborhoods bonded. Our brain is built for telling and listening to stories. It's a fun fact. When we hear stories, it releases dopamine into our system that places emotion behind the data, which makes it easier to remember. Another neat thing about our brain is that when we are listening to a story, our brain tends to turn the story into our own ideas and experiences. So I want you all to think, have you ever heard a story? You weren't a part of it. Someone's just telling you a story of something that happened to them. But they're doing such a good job with that story and narration that you can picture yourself there. That's what makes stories so effective. Now, another reason is that good stories are better at compelling change. With analytics, your goal is normally to change how someone makes a decision or takes an action. You're attempting to persuade, inspire trust, and lead change with that. Unfortunately, though, no matter how impressive your analysis is or how high quality that data could be, you're not going to compel any change unless the stakeholders for your work understand what you have done. Now, this could require a visual story or a narrative one, but it does require a story. Now, if you're like, oh, that totally makes sense. Why are we not doing this more now? Well, you need to remember that a lot of times those that are great at analytics, not always, but sometimes can struggle with telling stories. Everyone has their own strengths and areas of expertise. And in a large company, you will have teams, like everyone's pretty siloed. So you're going to have teams handling the data, and then you'll have your copywriting teams. And I've worked with both of those, been on both of those teams, and there is vastly different communication styles there. It's because of how your brain works and the way you normally communicate. So those with an analytic mindset 100% can become great storytellers. Just might take some practice, be a little bit out of your comfort zone the first few times. Another reason, unfortunately, is those that are analysts, a lot of times they might think that storytelling is not really the best use of their time, that they are indulging in this practice and that they should be doing some quantitative analysis processes instead. Unfortunately, though, if you cannot explain your findings or what the data is saying in a way that others can understand, which is the crucial part here, your data essentially is useless. So unless you can communicate what is happening and get people to agree with you, what really was the point with your process there? So let's talk, what is data storytelling? So first off, digital storytelling. This is more of the generic term for telling stories with technology that can present an idea or an outcome, while data storytelling is more of the art of converting numbers into narratives. This means that many reports might look or smell like data stories because they have numbers and they have charts. But while all data stories are reports, not all reports are data stories. So let's talk now about the data storytelling life cycle. What is that whole process? How do we get into it? What are the steps for this? So first off, you start with the purpose, you move into the narrative, gather your data insights, put them into visuals, and then finally wrap things up with a call to action. So let's talk about each of these sections just a little bit more to explain them. First off, our purpose. So this is the first step in the data storytelling life cycle, and you need to think, what is the outcome you want to achieve? Because we really design backwards. We start with our end goal in mind. We pick one major point and stick to it. So when you come up and you're tasked with creating a report, you're like, okay, this is a goal. This is what I need to achieve. This is what I want people to believe, to discover, to find out, to use this for. Whatever that purpose is, we're going to work backward from there. So we always have to find what the audience needs to learn from this, use it for, do with it. What is your purpose? That's the key step for this purpose. Next up is our narrative. So once you have our purpose, our next step is our narrative. And your responsibility is to distill those data insights into this single focus narrative that guides your audience to the desired conclusion. So your data story should be this coherent, consistent story from beginning to end, weave through. So we're just talking about, movies and books having a plot line. So we want to make sure that as we are coming up with our narrative, that's essentially our plot. That's what we're writing all the way through. Now, I know I've sat through movies or read books where halfway through, what is even happening here? There's no plot, nothing makes sense here. And I'll just stop watching. I just won't care about what happens. And that's not what we want happening with our report narrative. We want to keep this going all the way through. We have to think, what's our purpose? And how can I grab everyone's hands, pull them along with me, and distill this information to them? The first step for that is to know your audience. So when you're doing that, you have to think, am I talking to C-level executives? Am I talking to peers? Am I talking to programmers or business users? What is my end user? Who is going to be listening to this? Because when we start talking, we get into our introduction where we need to kind of really hook our audience from the get-go. How do we hook them? We have to know who they are. We have to know how they think, how they talk, how much they understand. That way we are able to deliver this information in a way that is going to be effective for them. We also need to have that narration to support our visuals. Now, we want to make sure that when we are creating our reports and with this report design, that we are not putting so much text on there that it is overwhelming and just giving people too many things to look at, no real spot for their eye to focus. So as we look at our report later on, we're going to talk about how you can concentrate on, maybe you don't need your X and Y axis labels. Maybe some places data labels are really essential. Other places, they just lead to clutter. So we're going to talk about focusing our report in on the essentials there. But of course, keeping that narration the whole time through. Next up, we also want to keep it simple. Not dumbing it down, but keep it simple. Sometimes I've sat through things where it just sounded like someone grabbed every complicated term they could ever say just to appear like they actually knew what they were doing. When in fact, if you ask them a simple question, they really couldn't explain that. So the more simple that you are able to keep your narration, keeping it in terminology, again, knowing your audience, keeping that terminology in and working for whether it is someone that is programming very into the data, knows this program, or someone that might just have a very high level understanding of what you're doing. So making sure that as you're going through, keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate just for the sake of overcomplicated. Don't use big terms there. And if you do, make sure you explain them. Of course, make it memorable. So I want you all to think right now, try to remember any report, any presentation that you have sat through in the past month or even the past year. Do you actually even remember any? And if you do, why? What stood out to you? Is there any way that you could actually take that and apply it to what you are doing? How do they stand out? So we want to make our report, our dashboard, our story. Odds are it's not going to be the only one that's heard. If we're doing like a quarterly presentation, probably other departments are also presenting, other people are also presenting. And so if we're just sandwiched in a few other things, how is ours going to stand out? How is everyone going to remember to take the action that we want them to take when they walk out of that room in 20 minutes, an hour later? Then, of course, craft our story. So into that narrative, that data story should be coherent. It needs to be this consistent story from beginning to end. Just think you are weaving that plot all the way through. Next, we move on to our data. Now, this is generally where a ton of people will just start when they are building their report, really skipping over the purpose and the narrative. Because you're like, oh, I have to build this report about X, Y, and Z. I'm going to go get my data and just build the report. But this is a step where finally, once you know what you really want to present on, how you're going to be talking about that, this is where you are going to bring your data in. We're going to be specifically talking Power BI here. This is where you're going to bring your data in, take it into Power Query, clean it up, eliminate anything that is confusing that could spark more questions that either you don't really want to get into or you might not be prepared to answer. Then, of course, verify those results. So you're going to need to know that data pretty much inside and out and be prepared for questions. Never, ever, 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 ever assume or make up an answer if you don't know it. Now, I'll also show you how you essentially can hide some data into your report. So if you're presenting and you're going to have to answer some questions at the end and you're going to have a lot of data specific related questions, you don't want to have to bring up like an Excel sheet or another report just to have that data. I'll show you how you can essentially hide that data into your report. So you'll have it there, you can smoothly transfer over and answer some questions about that. Also remember with your data, not all data insights that you find are going to support your story. You want to make the data tell what you want. Of course, don't manipulate it into being incorrect or wrong, but a lot of times you're going to have a ton of extra data that's not bad. It's just not related to what you're doing. Eliminate all of that confusion, really hone that narrative to being specific. Too many insights could crash your story. Next, we take it into visuals. So we're going to go over some visual best practices as we're building this. And also we're going to talk about some data storytelling tools in Power BI. So first tip that I have for you on a visual front and just report design in general is plan it out. Now you can do this on an actual whiteboard. If you've got a notepad handy, you can just draw it out. You can even do this on a PowerPoint slide, just block out where you're like, I'll have a chart here, I'll have this table here, I'll have some buttons here. Plan out that design and also think through, if I click on this, am I going to get a cross filter or a cross highlight over here? What's going to happen? What's going to look like if I hit this, if I hit that, if I move things around? This is one of the top tips for a web designer. Just plan it out. It's going to be so much faster, even if it's just scribbles on a whiteboard or a piece of paper. You put the thought into it before you had to put a visual there. Put the data into the visual, format all of that, only to find out, oh, I don't love how this works, and then have to redo it and spend 20 more minutes on something you could have spent, 2 minutes, just a little bit of planning in advance. And other design tip I have for you, less is more. Now, if you're looking at this image, there is nowhere for your eye to just kind of start because it's so busy. Normally, I'm like looking at this thing right here, and then I might bounce over to the background. That's going to take me to this little swirling vortex over here. And then I just get into the background. I don't even read the text or the importance. I'm just looking at how insane everything is. So really make careful, conscious choices of what to include both with your narrative and, of course, your report design on your page. But I have faith in you. I know none of yours are going to look this crazy. All right, here are the Power BI features we're going to be spending the rest of our time talking about. And if these are used correctly, they can really enhance your report and aid in that data storytelling. So we're going to be implementing these throughout class, and those are going to be a drill through page, a custom tooltip. We're going to be talking custom visuals in Power BI. We're also going to be doing a ton of bookmarks and using our selection pane for that. And we're going to put a spotlight on. So if any of these are new to you, stay tuned. We're going to be putting these in for our report. Now, let's talk about those a little bit more. For a drill through, it's kind of where you can like hide your data. This is an additional page that you add in. So you're really going from one report page to another more detailed page. So if I have a report that has like a map and I want to see that at a more specific level, it's like a state level or a city level, you are able to really easily set this up so it will filter as you go through whatever element you set in. And I'm going to go through the process with you all in a bit to set up a drill through page. Whatever element that you're putting in, that allows you essentially, that's like the password to get over to the other page, and will retain essentially the filter of whatever data you clicked on. That is now going to filter down that drill through page for you. We also have custom tooltips. So normally a tooltip is a tiny little box that shows up over your visual that has whatever data points are in there. Helpful, useful, yes. Interesting? No, it's not really eye-catching. So if you are building out a report, you can always make your own tooltip. So you can have visuals on visuals. If you're like, oh, it'll be a little too distracting to have this visual in here multiple ways or multiple times on the same page, different kinds, it'd just be too busy. You can instead put that as a tooltip. So instead of just looking at a year view, I can have a tooltip pop up with the month view as well to just give you additional data points, while also not really cluttering up your main view. Also put probably with the tooltip 3, maybe 4 small ones is kind of the max you can put on there, but you can put some extra information in there that can give additional detail to that report while not being distracting. Custom visuals, of course. Now you are able to get these third-party designed visuals from AppSource. And these have, I think there's like almost 500 now. New ones get added every single month. And so when you are looking at these, there's some things you need to consider. First off, is it Power BI certified? Which means the Power BI team has looked at this visual, made sure that it is safe, secure, and that it works in every instance of Power BI. Also, some are free and some have paid components. So you got to consider those two things whenever you are looking at downloading and getting those Power BI visuals. Also, a lot of companies, I'll warn you now, do prevent you from downloading any uncertified ones. I fully support that. There's plenty of certified ones that work. That way you know, hey, if something goes wrong, I don't have to check the visual and my data. It's just going to be probably something with my data that I've got to adjust. Then we are going to be adding in bookmarks. And now a bookmark captures really the current configuration of a page. So if you think literally a bookmark, you're putting it into a book, you can come back later to that bookmark, and there you are right at the page. Essentially, a bookmark in Power BI really does the same thing. So you can filter your page down, have your visuals however you want them to be. You click that add bookmark button and it's going to capture there. It's like essentially a live action screenshot. It's going to capture where you're at. You're then able to link that bookmark to a button. And then whenever you click on the button, boom, everything gets filtered to that specific view. Bookmarks are a lifesaver when you are delivering a presentation and you have some complicated filtering that needs to take place to get your data where you need it to go to. Also, just building reports for future use to make it really easy for that end user to navigate through, especially if they might not be a very native or skilled Power BI user, making it really easy and obvious for them. That way they can just click buttons to get where they need to. Now, in conjunction with your bookmarks, you're going to be using your selection pane, because just like when you are working in like PowerPoint and you're thinking, all right, this is going to sit in front of this, or this is going to be behind here, like send to the front, send to the back. With your selection pane, you are easily able to move things around. So if you have anything layered, you can make sure that the top layer is what you want on top. You can also show and hide visuals there. So if you're taking a bookmark with some things hidden, some things shown, you can easily control that in your selection pane. We're also going to be putting a spotlight on a visual. Now, spotlights are pretty fun. They're really nice. And they're incredibly easy to set. So people don't realize the easy process. Really, the main thing with a spotlight is to get it to work long term. You want it to be linked to a button, because really as soon as you click out of your spotlight, it's gone. So you want to link that spotlight to a bookmark and then have that bookmark on a button that you can click to then show that really easily time and time again. So once you have all of your visuals done, remember we've created our purpose, we've set our narrative that we're going to be consistent with all the way through. We've brought our data in, cleaned it up, made sure that we're really focused on just the essentials that are going to back up our point, our purpose, whatever we want to do with this report. Put them into visuals, make sure our pages aren't busy. We are going to use bookmarks to create this really easy process for delivery. And then finally, we get to our call to action. This is where we end things up. And we have to, after we've finished, we don't just want to sit down and be like, okay, thank you for your time. We want them to take an action. So this action ties into our purpose that we came up with at the very beginning. So we need to think, how do we want them to take action so the purpose of this report was successful? So we have to give them instructions. Not like we're not going to give them the credit to get there on their own, but we don't want them to be like, well, you know what? Let's think about this instead. We don't want them to like go off on a rabbit trail of something different. So we should always provide one clear, consistent view for them all the way through. All right. So once we got a purpose, got that narrative through, we've got our data, put it into some great visuals on our page. Think of that call to action. That is our data storytelling life cycle that we're going to run through every single time that we have a new report. Now we're going to hop in and we are going to do a video game scenario here, and that's a report we're going to build. But we're going to run through that for you first. So you can see how all of those elements are applied to this report. Now, before that, I do have a good question in the chat that I see. And Robert asks, what are some good design tools for creating layouts instead of a whiteboard? So really good question, Robert. So if you're just doing kind of whiteboarding, thinking out like layouts from scratch, and you don't want to use a whiteboard, there's a lot of really good like websites and even apps out there for whiteboarding. Now, if you're thinking more of just some report layouts, there's also lots of really good links for good structures. Now, I'm actually doing a series of report design here on our YouTube channel. I think a new one went out today, but I'm going through the entire process here in each video, building out reports, and I'm going to be doing that all year long. And a few of those are going to be talking about report structure. That's to say, I don't want you to have to wait for those videos. There's lots of good links of other ones out there talking about report structure. If you go to powerbi.com. In this service, there's also some good report examples that you can look out and mimic. And there's even some downloads out there as well, where you can kind of think of, based on the type of your report, where you want to put some buttons, some graphs, some different things out there. So that is a really good thing to look out. I'd start at the Power BI service, start with Microsoft's own resources, and then kind of look from there. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I'll be having some videos out about that in the next few weeks and months, all about report structure as well. All right, so let's go ahead now, and we are going to pull over this example. Now, I'm going to deliver this example to you, and I want you to all kind of think right now that you are a whole bunch of investors. And I am working for a video game company. And so my video game company is coming to you all, my investors, and I'm presenting this data to you. So we looked up all this video game data so that we can kind of relate to that and show you how, we'll make a lot of money for you with our video games if you invest in us. All right. So, all right, investors, put your little investor hats on. All right, are you guys ready? So we here at Pragmatic Works Games have created a platform for family-friendly games that could bring everyone together. We've developed this report showcasing market research about games and specifically games that help bring families together. So the first thing that we noticed when we looked at this data is that the overall quality is lower. This is a user rating score than games in the past. And when we're talking about quality, we don't mean technology, because graphics are significantly better now. What we're talking about is the user score and how users actually enjoyed the game. So if we are looking at everyone and everyone 10 plus, because that is the genre and demographic that we want to market to, within these two categories, we can see that the Nintendo console has done the best overall. So Nintendo has led the market in the genre we want to focus on. So when we look at ratings, we can see we have this nice spike over here in 2008 for total games revenue in the millions. This is telling us that there is a lot of opportunity for revenue in the genre we want to be in, specifically that everyone and everyone 10 plus. Now, looking specifically at the Wii console, which is Nintendo, we can see that they are leading the market even though they're not continuing to make games for it. And inside of that, the most popular ones for Wii are action, sports, racing, and driving. So we want to build games that are compatible for Nintendo. We also want to focus on games that fall into the action, sports, and racing genres. Now, speaking of those three genres, we can see that user ratings are falling across the board. This doesn't mean that the desire for those games isn't there. It's just that, again, those current games are not meeting the standards that users desire. So we have partnered with some big box stores and put together surveys to see if the market research matches what people are saying. And we can see that we have most of those surveys for the everyone group in that 25 to 50 year range. And we can see that action and adventure are the most popular, especially in that category. So all of the data and information that we gathered all points to the same thing. Customers want games that are in the family category, but they're disappointed in that overall quality of games currently available. Graphics are great, but that storytelling has fallen off dramatically. So we here at Pragmatic Works Games are looking for investors that also want to be involved in a game system that's focused on entertaining, but also bringing families together. So we make high quality games that are replayable for years and years to come. Before you leave here today, we want a commitment from you. You're going to join us in this journey and invest in our vision. So is everyone sold? everyone's about to like start this. Should I go get like an LLC for this, get the trademark on this? I honestly think it probably would be a good idea. Do I know anything about video game delivery? No. Do I really play that many video games? Also, no. But I still think it would be a good idea for someone out there to capitalize on. So if you've joined me on investing, this is the report that we are going to be creating together. So I looked over the chat. Good question. Someone asked, is this a report or a dashboard? And that is a very good question. Lots of discussion about that in the Power BI world. So in Power BI, if you want something to be interactive, or if you are clicking on things and you want action to happen, that is a report. If you want a dashboard in Power BI terminology, which I know differs from a lot of other data elements out there, a dashboard is a high-level overview. So if I wanted a dashboard off of this, so I just wanted to like track these metrics, I would be able to pin visuals from my report to a dashboard. But again, if I clicked on anything, I wouldn't have any interactivity. I wouldn't have any cross filters, cross highlights going on. Instead, it would take me directly back to the report that the visual is coming from. So in Power BI, anytime you see anything that is moving, interacting, that's a report. High-level overview, that is going to be a dashboard for you. All right, so let's go ahead now, and we are going to jump over into Power BI. So let me get this one knocked off and then make sure I am going to share my Power BI with you all. Now, if you want to follow along with me, the link for the class files is in the chat. So again, if you want to do this with me, 100% go for it. I have that same starting file in there that you will be able to use. Now, if you just want to watch, also again, totally fine. You can download those files, rewatch this video later on. It's going to be saved on our YouTube page, so you will be able to follow along if you'd rather to have it there, where you could just easily pause me. Again, you can pause me now too if you need to. All right. Let me now make sure that I'm going to stick up my Power BI for you all to follow along. I know Angelica, marketing team, is helping drop those links in the chat for everyone. All right, so also quick reminder with those files, it is a zipped file, so you will need to unzip that or extract that to use the data inside. So here we go. Here is our Power BI desktop report. Here's all the elements. I already have this pretty much built out, but we're going to be adding all of our special storytelling features to this because, again, we don't have a ton of time. This whole entire site, so if you want to see more of the behind the scenes build of this on our on-demand learning platform, you can take this whole class. Again, I could talk about this topic all day long, but you can see in here we go into a lot more time, a lot more depth of all of the elements of the setup of every little bit of things going into that. So this is on our on-demand learning platform. I'm going to have a link for you guys later on at the end to sign up for that as well. All right, let's take a look. We've got all of our data over here. We've got tons of tables, all video game related here. Got some buttons set up. These are images. They're also in your class files. You can refer to them. So I have a logo up here. I have a button over here, and then I have a page name on each of the pages. Also, on my ratings page and on my console page, I have a custom visual. Now, this custom visual right here is the Chiclet Slicer. Now, the Chiclet Slicer is a free Power BI certified custom visual. This is actually created and designed by Microsoft. So it's one of their own, quote, third-party ones that is in App Source. Brought that one in. Now, I like using a Chiclet Slicer because it allows you to really easily have images. I know the Slicer now also is letting you do images. I haven't played around with that too much for that, but the Chiclet Slicer for most organizations should be allowed because, again, it's Power BI certified and it is totally free to download. But it's very easy to, if you have any links, it's really all that this works off of is just an image link. A report internally where I pulled pictures from our website of everyone's faces. So as long as there is a URL for that image, you can put it in your Power BI chiclet slicer very, very easily. All right, and that I also used on my ratings page, so we can have these rating images. And I also have it on the console page, so that way I can see all of these console logos here as well. So a lot of the time when we're building reports, when we're thinking we want to keep this simple, we want to make sure that, okay, when we're putting this in, we don't have over usage of words, over usage of text. We want to really make sure that if we need to have it, it's there, but it's not. A great way to do that when you're looking at a report, always get a second set of eyes on your report. Always make sure when they're looking at it that they can see what is going on, what are the metrics, do you need X and Y axis labels on there? You know, if it's 1995, 2000, 2005, I'm going to bet 99% of people is going to be like, well, that's the years. There you go. Take that text out, eliminate, having an extra like year label sitting down here. Of course, if you're dealing with metrics that you have no idea what is going on and it's not specified in the name, then you want to be a little bit more careful and sure that you are properly labeling things. But always get a second set of eyes when you're done your report. And here is our survey page. Now I have 2 additional pages here aside from our just regular reports. This first page, this is going to be our drill through page. So after I presented my whole pitch for video games, at the end, what if anyone had questions? What if they wanted to go into more detail about something? Well, this way I can have an entire table of data here. I can easily go to it. I'm going to show you how we can link this page so that way from our other pages, we are able to go there. And then also whatever we went through on, that's going to be now applied as a filter for this page. So let's talk about this. I added this page in just as a regular page. Click that plus sign, add a regular page, put whatever visuals on this page that are going to explain in more detail whatever you are looking at for your topic. And I also want to point out, you can have as many drill through pages on your report as you would like. So if you have a few different topics, you want to have a few different drill through pages specifically about those, you definitely can do that. Now, for this one, to actually make it a drill through page where I'm able to go from another page to this page, what we need to do is here in our visualization pane, this very last field here is add drill through fields here. Now, what I need to do is I need to grab some data from over here, some piece of data, and I'm going to drop it into this field. As soon as I do that, over here in the corner, I'm going to get a little arrow button. And what that will do is once you have, published this data out to present it, that will serve as a link back to whatever page you were on before you came to this drill through specific page. Because you see, I don't really have any other navigation or anything around this page. So let's make this drill through page, and then we're going to test it out and see how it works. All right, so for this drill through page, what I want to make sure that I have set up on here is I want to make sure that wherever I'm originating, wherever I'm starting from, wherever I'm going to essentially have my question, be like, I want to know more about X, Y, and Z. I need to see what data was used in that visual. Because again, that data is going to serve as like the password to get to this data. So let's say I'm going to come in from this visual down here on my main first page, my industry summary page. I can see what I have used over here. So I have this release year data, I have a total games measure, and I also have an average user score measure. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get this total games measure, and I'm going to use that as essentially the password to get to my drill through page. So I'm going to go back over to that C game detail, my drill through page. And then here in this drill through field right here, I'm going to grab it. It's living in my happy measure table up here. Drag it in here. We're going to see our arrow, and then we'll test it. So in my measure table, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab that total games measure. And when you do, make sure you're dragging it and dropping it into the drill through field. So you don't want to drop it into your regular visual field that would create a visual. We want to put it into that specific drill through field. So you can see, I grab that total games measure, not the revenue one, just total games, and added it in. And as soon as I added it in, I got a little arrow right here as my back button. So let's test this out really fast, and then we're going to come back and modify that button so we can actually see it. So on my industry summary page, remember I'm going to use this one, and really honestly anywhere that has a total games measure, I could come through on there. Now how a drill through works is if you want to hover over your data, in your tooltip, you're going to see if you have the ability to do a drill through. So if you're ever like getting a new report you haven't really seen and you're hovering over your data, you can always see if that drill through element is added in, and then future people using it would also know, oh, there's a drill through, I can learn more about this. Now to get to your drill through, you will want to right click. So you can see if I do a right click here, that will then give me this drill through page. And the same when we publish this out and look at this in the service. So I can click on this C game details. Now, very important to note, whatever I name this page, that is going to be what your drill through name is. So make sure when you're doing that, that you are naming it something that's one easy for people to understand and also like okay for them to see. So I'm going to click on that C game details, and boom, I am now over on that drill through page. Then I can see over here the filters that have been applied. So I clicked on a data bar that was a year. So I filtered this down specifically to the year 2009. So all of my data here is now filtered down to 2009. So however I came in, that is what's going to now filter this page. So drill through pages, really great way to essentially hide that extra data in there, but also give you a more detailed view. Now let's go ahead and modify this button because again, we want it to stand out, make it really easy for users to navigate through. So I'm just going to drag that a little bit bigger. Then over here, notice that your visualization pane became your format pane. So you can see you've got lots of button options and general options as well. Inside of my style section in the format, got a lot of that folded in here. I am able to adjust the color. So in this icon section here in the button, and again, I have this visual selected, I can change this line color, the thickness of it, if I want it to stand out more. I'm just gonna make mine white and leave it at that. And then of course, play around here, see what that does. You can also like adjust transparency, all that good stuff. Lots of options for editing in here. You can see that its action is set to back. So whatever page I came from, when I hit this button, it's going to take me right back there. All right, so that is a drill through page. Again, any other visual that is also using that total games measure, like this one here, I would also be able to go through, drill through, and see this page. Now, this time, it is filtered down to Sony Generation 5. So again, pick your data, that's your password, going through. My next page that I have is a tooltip page. But before we do that, there's one little thing that we really should do for drill through pages or any kind of like bonus things, and that's hide it. Because I don't want someone to just navigate to this page of the report, just a table. It wouldn't be very exciting as just a regular page. I only want them to come through as a drill through page. So I want to make sure that I am hiding this page Again, right click on that C game detail page, and then you can go ahead and hide it. That way, when we publish this out, it's not going to show up in our navigation. Really, the only way to get there is to do that right click on our data. Right, let's go ahead now and go over to our report page tooltip, and this is going to be our custom tooltip page. You're like, why is that visual just crammed over there in the corner? Well, let's think about tooltips for a second. And even right here, there's my tooltip. It's a little box that shows just the data specific to whatever I'm hovering over. But if we're making a report, we want to make this really interactive, provide a lot of features, we can make a custom tooltip. So now, instead, when I hover over certain elements, instead of having a little box pop up, I could have a custom tooltip. And again, you can also make, just like multiple drill through pages, you can make multiple custom tooltips. Now, just like a tooltip, we are going to make sure that we need to do a few things, or just like our drill through rather, we have to do a few steps to get this to work. And tooltips require a few more steps than drill through pages. So first off, I want you to go over to your paintbrush, your formatting, and we're going to look at our page information. So in that paintbrush and our page information, there is a very important button that you need to turn on to make this a tooltip. Because again, this is just another normal page. I just clicked add a page, put a visual on it. It's just a regular page. To actually make that, you need to set that to turn it into a tooltip. Once, and you can see you turn it off, it's a regular page. Turn it on, it's a tooltip. Now, first time you do this, I flipped mine back and forth a few times, but the first time that you do this, normally the action that will happen automatically now, they adjusted it sometime last year and it's awesome, is it is automatically going to change your page size from a giant page. Like right now, this is a full size page. I don't want to hover over data and then have another full size page pop up. I want this to be smaller, just like good normal tooltip is. So now what's standard is when you turn this on, your type is immediately going to change to tooltip. Now, if you're on an older version of Power BI, you still might need to manually do this. A good reason to try to get an upgraded version. But as soon as you turn this on, you will either it will either do it on its own, or you can just go to that Canvas settings section and turn that to a tooltip. You can see as soon as I turned it to a tooltip, it is now much smaller. So this is going to be the actual size of the tooltip as it pops in and whenever I hover over data. So now that we've set it as a tooltip, we allowed it to be used, and we set the page size as a tooltip. Back over in my formatting here, now what remember was a drill through section on our other page is now a tooltip section. So just like with the drill through for the tooltip, I have to essentially provide a password. So what data, when I'm hovering over it, do I want this to show up? That's what we have to figure out. So over on my ratings page, I have all of this data, and this data is at a year level. If I'm really curious, hey, like what happened right here? What in 2009 was so popular? Well, I can now look at this at a month level instead. So I can see if I'm looking at this visual that I pulled the release year from my games table. So what I am going to do is I am going to get the release year from my month. So I can see if I have, or I need to use a release year rather, because I want to show the month. On my tooltip page, this is showing the month, but my password is going to be the year. So you have kind of the same element in two places. You want to keep it clear of like, okay, I'm showing this element, but my password is this other element that I'm going to hover over. So on my games table, I can see I have my release hierarchy right here. We used the year in our other visual, so we want to use the year as simply our password in this tooltip field right here. So I'm going to grab the year and I'm going to drop that in my tooltip field. I can see I could specify this, filter it if I wanted to, But now let's go ahead, like our drill through, and test it. So back over on my ratings page. Now when I hover over my data point, there we go. We've got our now custom tooltip here that is showing me for the year I'm hovering on, what does it look like all of the months, all of the way through. Last step for our tooltip, just like for our drill through page, I don't want someone navigating to this little baby page all on its own. Instead, I want to hide this so that way it is not visible for just regular navigation. So again, right click on that page and click hide. See the little crossed eye over there, and know that it is set and good to go. All right, next, what we're gonna set up on our report are all of our bookmarks. Now, bookmarks are such a lifesaver when you are presenting a report, because odds are you're gonna need to filter some things. You're gonna need to click around to different things. The easier you can make that for yourself, the smoother your presentation could go. You know, so many people hate public speaking. It's nerve-wracking. But the easier you can make the process, the easier you can make the technical things for yourself, the better it's going to go, the more comfortable you will be. So bookmarks are great for presenting. They also make it so easy for if you're creating a report for end users to access, especially ones that aren't really comfortable in Power BI. So again, a bookmark, essentially I can filter this to whatever I want to show, and then whatever way I have it filtered, I can set the bookmark, link it to a button, and then boom, I click the button, drops me right back here. So incredibly helpful. So let's go through the process of building them. It can seem intimidating at first, but it is pretty streamlined once you get the hang of it. Now, when we go, we are going to be adding in 2 panes. We're going to add in our bookmark pane and our selection pane. Again, remember, this is your pane section over here on the right. I'm saying pane, like a window pane. So this is your pane section right here. So when you add these in, our screen's going to get a little bit small because we're getting a lot of things added in here. So you can always kind of expand or collapse these sections if you need some more space. But I'm going to go ahead and add in my bookmark and my selection pane here. Now your selection pane, this is going to show you all of the visuals that are on that page, all of the elements that you are able to either show or hide. And you can, easily move these around. If I had things layered, I could decide what would be on top, what would be on bottom, just like you could in a PowerPoint. All right. So with this, we're not always going to need our selection pane for every single page, but we will have it open for some where we will need to add additional elements and hide them for different views. So I'm going to close mine for right now, just kind of collapse it so that way it's still here, but that way I have a little bit more room to work with on the screen. This is when it's good to have a giant monitor to work off of. I'm showing off my laptop just because it shows better dimensions for you all. But 100%, if you've got a big screen, you're working with a lot of panes, it'll make it easier. So with our report, with our whole purpose of adding buttons in to make our report easier to deliver and keep that narration, we need to think of, okay, on this page, what am I emphasizing? I'm talking about everyone and everyone 10 plus. Then everyone 10 plus, when I'm like, ooh, look over here, Nintendo is what is standing out. So what we are going to do is we are going to filter this to this view. We're going to add a little circle icon in that's going to highlight those. And then we're going to link that to this button. And that is going to be one of our bookmarks because that is going to let us easily click this little video game icon and get this very specific filtered view. So that's going to be the first one we are going to set. So to add that in, go over to your insert ribbon up at the top, go to your shapes, and we're going to add in an oval. So I'm going to go to shapes, and I'm going to go add in that oval. Now I'm going to put in the specific sizes for this. You can just eyeball it if you want to, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to go into my rotation and I'm going to set all to 199 because I already kind of put out what is going to be the best angle for it. So again, if you want to just kind of eyeball it, great. I'm going to set mine specifically though. Again, if we go too fast, you skip any steps, don't forget you can pause this and go back and rewatch any of these sections. Next up, I'm going to go over into my general properties and I'm going to adjust my height. I'm going to make that 127 and I'm going to make my width 201. Boom. Now, I'm also going to move its position on the page. So if you're a little bit OCD like me, you like things to be pixel perfect, your properties, size, and position are going to be some of your favorite sections because you're really able to control exactly where on your page. So if you really want things to line up time and time again, page after page, property section, good one to go into. Also, I want to go over back again to my style section because I am going to bump my fill all the way down. I'm going to go like 90% because I want to kind of emphasize that it's a little bit different, but not block it out. And I'm also going to bump up my border. So I'm going to change this border from 1 pixel. I'm going to bump that up to, let's go 6. So that way it really stands out. Well, also, let's see if we can also want to gonna keep it those colors. So it should be set and ready to go there. Now, I'm happy with this view. I have it filtered to everyone 10 plus. I'm showing Nintendo in my little circle right there. Now, all I have to do is click add here in my bookmark pane, and that's going to add a little bookmark right here. And then anytime I click on it, it's going to take me right back here. So we click add, and boom, there we go. We got bookmark 1. Now, that's a terrible name because I guarantee you set a few bookmarks, you're going to forget what is 1, what's 2, what is 3. So 100% change that name as soon as you make it so you know what one is what. I'm just going to call it circle view. Make it simple and easy. Like naming bookmarks is the battle half the time. So now if I test this out, let's just click on anything else on here. Now, when I click on this circle view button, boom, takes me right there so I know it is working. Now that I have the circle one, I also want to set one up for my home page. And this is my home page, this industry summary page. And I'm going to link this back to my button. Now, we talk more about this in the full class, but you need to think of what is the conditioned behavior of your audience when they are looking at a computer. And normally, most people, when you are looking at any website, you've been conditioned to expect the logo to link back to the homepage. So I don't know when we started doing that many years ago, but now most people, you go on a website, you immediately, if you have to go back to the homepage, you just by default click on that logo. So we can mimic that behavior because that's what a lot of people expect, and we can link our home view back to this button. So anytime after we deliver the report, when we go back to the homepage, talk about some other things, that will easily serve as that link. So we are going to do 2 things. First off, we are going to link this bookmark to this button. So I want to link my circle view button to my controller. And then we are going to hide this and create a new home view to link here. So first for this view, to link this bookmark to our button, let's go ahead and select it. So make sure you have your video game icon selected. And anytime we're using shapes, images, icons, anything like that, your visualization pane is always going to turn into your format pane. So here at the bottom of my format pane, I see this action button, and we just need to turn this on and tell it what type of action. So I'm going to say this wants to be a bookmark, and then what bookmark do I want? The circle view. So we set our action to on, we set the type to bookmark, and what do we want? We want the circle view bookmark. So now when I click on this icon, it should take me right back to this view. So let me kind of mess things up a little bit there. Now, again, to follow any link when you're in your builder in your Power BI desktop, it is a control click. Just like if you're writing an email, you put a link in and you want to test that link, make sure it's the right link, you have to do a control click to follow it. Same exact behavior here in the desktop. So we're going to do a control click on this icon, and yep, it is working. It's good to go. All right, let's open up our selection pane now, and I'm going to go ahead and hide this shape. To kind of get this back to normal view, I'm going to defilter everything, making sure that really this default view, first view, is what I'm seeing. And I'm going to go ahead and add in a bookmark. This is just going to be my industry summary page view. So we're going to click add. Again, rename it because you're going to forget which one's which. I'm going to name it industry summary. Now I can just click back and forth between these two bookmarks, and they're working and doing good. So let's go ahead now and link our industry summary to our logo. So click the logo, your visualization pane turns to your format pane. We'll turn that action on and set it to bookmark. And the bookmark this time is going to be industry summary. So now if I do a control click, we'll go to this one first. That's working. Control click. That one's working. Now it's important to notice we hid that shape. Anything that you don't want to be there, if it exists on that page, you're going to have to hide it. Otherwise, it will show up. So if I modify, add other elements in here later on, and I don't want them in this view, I'm going to have to go back, hide it, and then I can always go and update a bookmark to get it where I need it to be. All right, let's go ahead now that these first two are done and set our bookmarks for the rest of the page, because what I want to do next is get all of those bookmarks into this nice side navigation. That way it's going to be really easy. Just click, click, click through. Now I have this report set up with a lot of things on my top and on my left as kind of more of the navigation elements of my report. And again, that is conditioned behavior of what generally people are expecting and what they're used to after being on the web for over decades now. So let's go ahead now, and in our ratings page, I want to make sure that I have everyone and everyone 10 plus selected in my chiclet slicer, because this is controlling what I'm seeing here and making sure I can see the spike that I want to talk about right here in 2009. So again, if you don't have them filtered, you can always click right on them and see that go. Now, let's go ahead, and all we have to do is click add here in our bookmark pane. So I'm going to go ahead and click add. We will name this one ratings. And again, I can click back through my bookmarks. There's my circle view. There's my homepage view. Here's my ratings view. Super simple. Moving over to consoles. And for this one, this is what I want my first view to be, because I want you to see the we first, and then we're going to talk about in we, what is most popular there, and then we're going to dive into those. So this is a view I want to see. Again, this is with my chiclet slicer, showing all those images that are just pulled from web URLs. Let's go ahead and hit add, and we'll call this one consoles. I can just verify. Every time I make one, I always want to test it just to make sure that it is pulling the right thing and that it's just set up exactly how I want. Better to do it now while you're on the topic and it's in your head than, 20 bookmarks later and you have to kind of go back and figure things out. So consoles is working. Now we go over to genres. Now this is where we get to put a spotlight on, because I want the focus really to be on this visual. And I want you really looking at this downward trend here. We've got the data if we need to have it, but I want that in the background. I want all eyes on here. So to do that, we're going to just look at that more option, that ellipses button. Anytime you see that more option, that ellipses button, those three dots there, that's Microsoft's universal, more things are here. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to turn this spotlight on. Now it's important to note, if I turn the spotlight on and I click anywhere else on the page, it turns the spotlight off. So that's why you always have to use your spotlight hand in hand with a bookmark. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that spotlight on. Everything else will fade into the background. And we're going to click add to get a new bookmark. And I'm just going to call this one genres. So now we can test it out. If I click off to it, whoop, there's my table. I can look at the data, talk about it a bit more. But again, if I click that genres, back to spotlight mode. So final bookmark that I need is on my survey results page. And here on my survey results page, we're really talking about, and we're going to go through the process. So I don't need to pre-filter anything down. I'm just going to take a bookmark for this page as a whole. So I'm going to click add, and I am going to just name this one survey results. Now we have all of the bookmarks set that we are going to need. So I have this first off circle view that gets me this one. I had that industry summary. Honestly, really, when I'm going through my bookmarks, I always like to keep them in order. So industry summaries, first view, default view, circle view is this more specified view. So you can always drag and drop to get those where you need them. Then we have our ratings page, consoles page, genre page, and then also our survey result page. Now that we have these here, it is time to put our navigation in. Now, I am going to go ahead and put that navigation in just on my home page. Then I'm going to copy and paste it over because I just want to link this. I want to set this up one time. I don't want to have to set it up a bunch. So I'm going to copy and paste. So you can see we have the logo here. We linked it over here already. But I've got the logo already on every page. So now you've got two choices. And this is why it's always good to plan things out, because then I'm very much assembly line when I'm building. I want to do all of the same things all at the same times. I want to be as condensed a process as possible. So if you have the same element on multiple places, set it up all exactly the way you need it one time and then copy and paste it over, because now I'm going to have to go into my action, go and set this bookmark every single time to industry summary on every single page. Not the worst thing ever because it's only a 5-page report, but always a good thing to consider is how can I do this in the most efficient way possible? So instead of designing, when I design my reports, I will find my color palette, I will create my theme, I will create my backgrounds, then I will apply that theme, apply that background, and then duplicate every single page that needs that same background so I don't have to apply the background every single time. So the more times you build reports, the more times you get used to that, and the more you're able to really consolidate those actions and save yourself time. So we've got our logo linked on all those pages. We don't want to have to do that every time for our navigation. So we're going to build our navigation once on this industry summary page, and then we will just copy and paste it onto our other pages. Now to build your navigation, Power BI, I want to say November of 21, they came out with these different navigator options. Previously, we would have had to make a separate button for every single thing we wanted, and then we'd have to copy and paste all of those buttons every single page. It was kind of a little bit clunky. So this has been a really good update and has worked really well in the past year plus that it's been out. So we're going to go ahead and go with this bookmark navigator, and let's go see how we can modify that. So you can see when it pops in, it's always going to be top left when it goes in. And there we go. Not exactly what we were looking for. So let's go ahead and modify this. So I'm going to go ahead. You can see in your shape section, you can always change the shape, and there's tons out there. Maybe hearts are going to work for your report. With this one, it's just going to stick with a rectangle. I'm also able to rotate this around, so the entire thing, just the shape or just the text you can modify. Good ones in there. In your style section, this is where we're going to do some work here. In the style section, this is where I can decide how each of these buttons are going to look. Also, what I want to do before I do that, let's get these, instead of it being horizontal where it's stretched out, I want them stacked on top of each other so they can easily sit in that part that I made for them. And in this background, I just made this background in PowerPoint. I go through that whole process in our ODL class if you want to watch it. So right here in grid layout, this is where I'm going to be able to change it from horizontal to over here, vertical setup. So I'm going to pick vertical, and there we go. And let's just kind of smush this over into the shape we wanted right here. So let's hop back up to our style. And when you are adjusting any kind of navigation buttons, you have 4 states to consider. Our first state is our default. Everything right now is in the default state. We are just merely, I'm going to shrink this over so you can see it a bit better. We're staring at it, nothing's happening, it's just sitting here. That's your default state. Your next one is your hover. So anytime my mouse is moving over it, that is your hover state. Then there's press. I really don't change my press state a lot because it's just so quick. It's literally the second you click on it before it goes to the final one, which is selected. So if I click on one of these elements, so again, control click and select it, I can see that this right here is the selected state. So this is the selected state, and all of these are in the default state. So if I want to change the default state, this is what I've got up right now. So we'll do our default state first, then we'll look at hover, press, and selected. So first off, we can change our text size, so we can make this larger. 10 is pretty small, so I'm going to go ahead. Let's bump this up to 15. That way we can see that easier. Notice as I'm changing this, again, it's only changing the default. It is not changing the selected. I'm going to have to change that one separately. So I have the default state selected. I am also, to fit more of the vibes of kind of my dark mode video game background here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change my font's color to white. We're going to lose it for a second, essentially. But I'm going to go ahead and in my fill, I'm just going to move this to 100% transparent. And I'm doing that because I want to keep my border and my shadow and all the things that can kind of get a little wonky if you turn your fill off. So I'm moving my transparency to 100. We're able to see our text now. And then in my border, I'm going to change my color. I'm going to go with, let's go theme color 4 for the border. And I'm going with a 1 pixel width. And then I am also, let's turn on our glow, make this a little Tron electric vibes here. So with the glow, that color, this bright one works for me for this glow right here. So that is good. All of these that I don't have selected kind of the default state are looking good. Let's go ahead now and I'm going to change the state to the hover state. Now you can see when I go to the hover state, if I'm going over this hover state, it's retained all of my settings that I just changed from the default state, which is really nice. It's just less changes that you will have to make. And so with this hover state, I'm going to change my font color though, because right now it's white, same color. I'm hovering, you don't see anything. So I'm going to change the hover over to this lighter blue. So now when I hover, I can see which one and where my mouse is at. Jumping on up to your press state, that is literally the very second when you click it. I rarely will ever set this. I'm good with this staying white. Again, if you wanted to flash a different color for a second, you can change it, but it is not really necessary. Finally, though, let's address our selected state, which was that top one here. You can see when I changed some of the things for my default state, like the background, that also affected the selected one. But My text is still really tiny, so I want all of my text to be the same size. So I'm going to bump that selected up to 15. So now the selected one, which we had industry summary selected, matches, but I got to change the font color because I need that to actually show which one I've got selected. So I'm going to change this one to, let's go theme color 3 here, make that one stand out a bit more. Now with these, I can also decide I'm going to want to go and bold this. And I also want to bold my default as well. So that way those are just a little bit more substantial. Anytime you have text elements, you want to make sure that the text isn't getting confused for anything else. Everything stands on its own and is easily identifiable and not confused for anything else. So making this just a little bit bolder kind of lets you stand out, show us more navigation, more of your settings rather than kind of part of a visual. Now, there is one other problem that we have with this navigation, and that I am also showing my industry summary page, which I already have linked here, and I have the circle view, which I have linked here. I don't want these two in my navigation. So I need to get those out of my navigation. And I'm going to do this here first in my bookmark pane, and then I'm going to do it in my bookmark navigation. So first off, here in my bookmark pane, what I'm going to do is I am going to put the 4 that I do want in the navigation in their own group. So I'm going to put them essentially in their own little folder, and then that group is what I'm going to link in this bookmark section for the navigation. So to put this into a group, sometimes it's a bit funky. You kind of have to click on one and then right click on the next one. And then once you do that, you're going to have this group button. So I'll always pick the first one and then kind of right click on the second one and hit group. And it's okay if it bumps you to that bookmark, knocks you to another page. That's totally fine. We'll move back to our home page in a second. Now to move the other ones up, all I can do is just drag and drop. Now it's important to note when you do that, whatever order it is right here, that's going to be your order over here. So I want to make sure that instead it's following the right order. So I have ratings first, then I want to have consoles, then genres, then survey results. So you may need to kind of configure that. So you can see they're living here, they're in their own group, but this still hasn't changed. This still shows everything because I need to do that additional step where I change this actual navigation bookmark from being all of the bookmarks to just being the group that I just made. Again, you can also name this. If I could name this my navigation group. Doesn't really matter. The only purpose of the name is just if you had multiple groups, keeping those names clear. So I'm going to change this to group 1. And as soon as I do that, boom, I've only got 4 on here and they are all linked. Now, a lot of times when you are in the desktop, sometimes like you can see ratings is selected, but we're not on our ratings page. By default, it looks a little bit funky, but when you publish the service, normally that kind of resolves itself and it's fine. But what I want to do now is put this on every other page that needs navigation. So ratings, console, genre, and survey results. Let's go ahead and copy this. So you can just make sure it's selected, do a Control-C, and then go over to your page, fingers crossed, I copied, and we'll do a Control-V, and boom, there we go. It's there. All of our links are working. We don't have to relink anything. We can just go ahead, Control-V, paste our way to getting this all set up and get that final one in there as well. So you can see with our report, remember that narration that we have all the way through. We're coming in and we're looking at everyone and everyone 10 plus. And then specifically, we're like, ooh, we want to highlight Nintendo over here. So it's our circle view. Then we go over to our ratings page. And on our ratings page, we talk about how everyone and everyone 10 plus, we have this big spike over here. So there's lots of money to be made. We go to the consoles, and this is where we're focusing specifically on Wii. We're like, Nintendo's the top one. We want to focus on Wii, and inside of Wii, action, sports, racing, and driving are the top categories there. So then we move into those genres. We're only looking at action, racing, driving, and sports You can see that downward trend. That's where our focus is because of that spotlight. If we wanted, I could dive more into the data. And then we talk about our survey results for everyone, specifically looking at that big group, 25 to 50. That's normally like the parents that would be buying these. And we can see action and adventure are still those top ones. And then we can click that logo to always take us back to kind of wrap up our narration. So once your report is all set up, good to go, exactly how you wanted, that is, of course, when you can take it, publish it out to the Power BI service. Now, how I presented this was in an app. So in my workspace for this, I simply created an app. That way it'd be a bit more streamlined to present in the app, and all I would have is kind of my app navigation at the top in Power BI versus all of my standard kind of side navigation that you see in the service. So really, again, streamlines, cleans up what you are showing and viewing. Now, another way, and again, all of your links, you can see whatever you click on, that is all visible. All of your pages you could go to, all of that is going to work. Here's what the spotlight looks like when it's published out to the service, where you don't have kind of really the selected box around it, but it is working in here. Another way that you are able to present this is if you instead, especially if you have like other things to talk about aside from just this report data, another great thing to do is to put this report into a PowerPoint visual. So to do that, it's incredibly easy. Back into my Power BI. I'm going to go over to that workspace for this one. I'm going to go to the report. And now on that report, you can see we have our hidden pages would show up over once we go into edit. We would see our hidden pages if we needed to modify our tooltip or anything like that. But if I want to share this in a PowerPoint and essentially embed this report in a PowerPoint, it's a great way to present. Again, if you have other data, you can always click this PowerPoint, embed live data, and you would copy this. And then there is an add-on that you can put into PowerPoint. And it is, I will say some organizations do not have it, but if you just search for Power BI, you are going to be able to paste that link in. Now, what is really nice is that they just updated this a few days ago, this add-in. So I also, if I wanted to, I could just share a particular visual. So maybe I show my whole report, but I really want to talk really specifically about just one visual, maybe stick some images on my PowerPoint page or like other text about it. Then I would be able to now just export this one. I could just share this one visual. So you're able to share the entire report, all the filters, the buttons, everything that you have set up is going to work. Or you can even be more specific and just share particular visuals as well. And don't worry, all of the data is stored securely in the Power BI service. So if I sent this PowerPoint to someone and they would have to like log in to see the data. They'd have to make sure that whoever they are, whoever was sent to, they had workspace access to actually see this report data. So lots of different ways you are able to bring that about. Hope a lot of you are kind of really excited to build your next report. See a quote someone in the chat. Few questions that everyone's been answering those a lot. But yes, this is recorded. You can re-watch this, go back, pause it. It is going to be on both our YouTube channel. So you go over to our Pragmatic Works YouTube channel on our live tab, you can go back and re-watch this one as many times as you would like. Also, all of our other videos live over here, but on our live, you can go back, see this one, all of the other ones that we've delivered. You can also see this class, both the full version of this class is on our ODL system, and then the this quick one, our little lunch with the nerds that you did and hopefully learned a ton in, will also live here. So either place you can consume this in, whatever one works best for you. All right, I do also have a link for you all. I know they just dropped that link in the chat, but I also have a QR code. So if you want to scan it instead of typing, anything like that, you can go ahead and let me actually share that and share this slide with you all. All right, y'all. Any quick data storytelling questions? We got 1 minute left to go. If anyone's got a question, and then I'll have this up for you if you want to scan that to get our monthly access to our ODL system. This again gives you access to all of our full classes. So we have a bunch of free ones, free for life ones on there. All of our live YouTubes live on there for free. All you have to do essentially is sign up, get your username on there. That just saves your place wherever you're at, but you don't have to pay anything for the free content. Then it's only $55 a month for all of our full. So if you want the full long deal where you can talk all day data storytelling with me, you can sign up for that one over there. All right, I do see a good question in the chat. So Power BI comes with navigation. Is it necessary to have the bookmark navigation on the report itself? Fantastic question. So if you are delivering a report and you don't have anything filtered, you really could just go through and be like, here's the stuff on this page we're talking about. Click to the next page in your standard navigation. But as soon as you filter anything, that is when I would start adding in bookmarks just to make it easier for yourself as you are presenting that. All right, you all, that is time. I'm going to keep you from the rest of your day, but thank you so much for joining us. Again, our next one, we have these every month. Our next one, I think, is going to be on the 13th of next month, and that is going to be around Power Automate, and that's going to be a full 3 hours on there. So if you're one of our Pragmatic Works diehard fans, which we appreciate, y'all, you want to know more about Power Automate, definitely come back next month for that live 3-hour training. All right, y'all, thank you so much for joining, and we will see you all next time. And also hopefully on our ODL and in our YouTube videos, we put out 2 to 3 every single week. So we'll see you there. Happy learning.